This is a publication of the Sefardi.org portal. Today, we're diving into the incredible life of Rabbi Abraham Antebi, a leader whose legacy was absolutely forged in fire, or in this case, in the rubble of a massive natural disaster that struck his city of Aleppo, Syria. So, picture this. The year is 1824. For the vibrant, thriving Jewish community of Aleppo, this was a year that would change absolutely everything. It would test their faith and their resilience right to the very limit. And then, in just an instant, their entire world was turned upside down. The ground shook violently, and the ancient city, this bustling center of culture and commerce, was just leveled, razed to the ground. The human cost was staggering. An estimated 1,000 Jewish lives were lost. Now, think about that for a second. In a community of about 10,000, that's 1 in every 10 people gone. The scale of that loss is just unimaginable. But, amidst all that chaos and grief, a leader not only survived but rose to the occasion, ready to guide his completely shattered community through what had to be its darkest hour. To really understand the challenge that Rabbi Antebi was facing, we first have to grasp the sheer scale of this devastation. The survivors, and that includes Rabbi Antebi, they were forced to just abandon their ruined homes and businesses. For 18 long months, they lived in these makeshift tents outside the city walls, facing a total collapse of their social and economic world. So who was this leader who would guide them from inside a tent? Well, this brings us to the man himself, Rabbi Abraham Antebi, and his truly extraordinary response to this crisis. So here's a quick overview of his long and pretty impactful life. He was born in Aleppo, a descendant of Jews who were expelled from Spain. And get this, by the time the earthquake hit, he'd already been serving as the community's grand rabbi and chief judge for 7 years. He would then continue to lead for decades more, passing away at the remarkable age of 93. And this right here, this is an incredible detail that shows you what kind of leader he was. While he was living in a tent without his library or any of his books, he wrote his very first work. He aptly named it Yosheb Ohalim, which means dwelling in tents. And he wrote the entire thing, a complex collection of sermons and legal analysis, citing all of his sources purely from memory. An absolutely astonishing feat of both intellect and spirit. But Rabbi Antebi's leadership, it went way beyond just spiritual resilience. He also had to confront the immense practical challenge of rebuilding not just buildings, but an entire economy. As you can imagine, the earthquake triggered a severe economic depression. People's incomes plummeted, while the prices for goods just soared. And on top of all that, the Ottoman Empire started demanding more taxes. Rabbi Antebi diagnosed a core problem here. The community was almost entirely dependent on commerce, an industry that was now in total ruins. His solution was just incredibly forward-thinking. He pleaded with parents to diversify the community's skills. He urged them to give their children a craft or a profession, not just more training and trade. He understood that a resilient future needed a much more robust and varied economic foundation. So we've seen his economic and spiritual leadership, but Rabbi Antebi was also a brilliant legal thinker, and he had to mount a bold defense of his very own judicial authority. And it all came down to this really simple but pretty profound question. See, in Aleppo, it was the custom for the grand rabbi to settle monetary disputes all by himself. Now, while that was technically permissible under Jewish law if both parties agreed, it raised a serious ethical debate that challenged his long-standing practice. So the challenge, which was based on the opinion of a respected 17th century authority, basically argued that only a great expert could judge alone. And since knowledge had supposedly diminished since the Talmudic era, no modern rabbi could possibly qualify. But then you have Rabbi Antebi's brilliant counterargument, where he just completely reframes the whole idea of what expertise even is. His logic was this. The Talmudic sages, they were masters of memory, which is a very rare skill. But in his day, with Jewish law written down in books, any dedicated scholar who could analyze the texts could be considered a great expert. He argued that access to written information actually made expertise more common, not less. What a powerful idea. So you see, it was this unique combination, spiritual strength in the face of disaster, practical economic vision, and this sharp intellectual courage that really cemented his place in history. For over 40 years as Grand Rabbi, he guided his community from utter ruin all the way to recovery. He was a prolific author, a dedicated leader, and a brilliant legal theorist. So it's no surprise he is rightly remembered to this day as one of the greatest luminaries of Aleppo. You know, Rabbi Antebi's argument really echoes from his time right into our own. He believed access to written information created more experts, not fewer. Well, today, we have access to a seemingly infinite sea of information. So his debate leaves us with a critical question for our own age. Has this endless access made us all experts, or has it simply made true expertise that much harder to find? For those of you who want to learn more, this explainer was based on an article by Abraham Shakh, which cited Halakhic.org. For some external verification of the historical context, you can check out works like Yaron Harel's Syrian Jewry in Transition and Walter P. Zenner's A Global Community. And once again, this has been a publication of the SoySefardi.org portal. Thanks for joining us.